I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address.
We're not just building muscle, we're building men. In the quiet hours, in the unfiltered moments, in the conversations that happen before the world wakes up. This is The Gloom, where brotherhood forms in the dark so we can lead in the light, where vulnerability is strength and leadership is handed from man to man, one story at a time. Our mission is to empower, exhort, and inspire men to achieve their best selves through stories of reinvigorated male community leadership. We bring you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha PACs, ordinary men doing extraordinary things in fitness, fellowship, faith, and leadership, because we believe that every man has a story, and reinvigoration starts when that story is shared. This is The Glue in the Gloom. Shout out to our sponsors, Avior Wealth Management, Liberty Core Real Estate, Major Team Mortgage, Exclusively Eye Care, Omaha Laser Dentistry, and McNamara Law Firm. We appreciate your support. What's it like to love your dentist? Well, you're about to find out, where healthy smiles go beyond your teeth. No drilling, no needles, and no anxiety. Relax, it's Omaha Laser Dentistry. Welcome to better. At Omaha Laser Dentistry, Dr. Bullenparty uses the Solea laser, a CO2 laser that's used in all of his day-to-day patient care. He provides thorough exams, assessments, and treatments for things like snoring, tethered tissue, and extractions like wisdom teeth, as well as other surgeries. Check him out today at omahalaserdentistry.com. Discounts may be available for F3 Omaha members. Now, let's get back to the gloom. All right, and we're back. We're live. I got, I was thinking before this guy got here that I typically think I'm Northwest, but when I think about a guy from the North, I think about a guy from Canada, right? Canadian bacon. I've got him on, and just I have to say, I love, when I'm with you in the gloom, I can tell, right? You're one of those guys that's always trying to get everybody else engaged and like let's get people going and excited and really being a part of the group, and I love that about you. So I'm excited to get your story, excited for guys to be able to hear it. Cool. Where we like to start off is just kind of that story. How'd you get started? Maybe what were you doing before? And then the name is likely obvious, but would love to hear, what did you throw out there? Or maybe what names were you hoping for? I don't know.
Well, thanks for your kind words. I'm sure more guys find me annoying than encouraging in the morning. But my story, I go to Brookside. So, we give thanks going backward to Tonight Show and Sister Act and all of those, there's literally dozens of guys at Brookside that are part of this. And I knew of it because I followed specifically Sister Act on what's now X. Yeah. So I knew he was doing this thing that looked pretty cool. Yeah. And then Beaver started to work on me, and I'm sure it took him 6 months, and I had all the lame stories. I was grotesquely out of shape. I've posted some before pictures recently on social media, and finally he convinced me to go to Coronado, and I had to lie to my wife. My wife was not on board with this. And so I said, it'll be fine, honey. There's a defibrillator at every location and trained person to use that if I drop dead. And, I think it's a story we hear a lot. We leave no man behind. And Folsom and his bright orange Hoka shoes were there to move at whatever pace I needed to move. And I couldn't run around that elementary school without gasping and stopping, not even just walking. Wow. And, a year later I was Murphing, and here we are. So yeah, I thank God for Beaver every day. The most important thing that happened to my life other than my wife in recent years. Yeah.
So. She was concerned
that I would have a heart attack and die. Like I was, at one point I was just shy of 230. And at my best point, which I'm not at, I got to 190. Wow. And so, I just I had no fitness, zero. So, she's in the cardiology space and wasn't really having it. And it's funny, we had a morning routine that the she doesn't get out of bed till she's had 3 cups of coffee. So somebody brings them to her,
Oh, yeah.
and all of a sudden that person was gone, and she felt like a jilted spouse, like I maybe was having an affair
Yeah.
for the longest time. And then she started to meet the M's of the guys that are in F3, and they're more just like she is, more often than not better people than their husbands.
Mhm.
And now she loves this. But at first for her, she was terrified, and then, a little feeling left behind.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of our M's probably identify
Yeah,
with that. What, as you think about that first morning, so it sounds like the guys picked you up, right? Which is, I just love hearing like that's a thing and we actually do it.
I do.
And it's really consistent. What, as you got in the circle to get your name, what'd you say, or how did we land on Canadian bacon?
Yeah, so I was kind of prepared for it, and Boji and Yodel were co-queuing that morning, and I like to cook, and so I wanted them to call me Iron Chef,
Oh, yeah.
something cool like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I came all ready to, talk about how cast iron cookware is the bomb, and all these prepared things, and then just, I'm from Canada, and it
Mhm.
was over.
Yeah.
It lasted 10 seconds, and Boji, they threw out a couple other ideas, and Hoser was taken, and it was Canadian bacon.
Okay.
I was, it's funny, I think a lot of guys at first are like, "Oh, this is stupid." And I wasn't what I would have chosen, but man, it's who I am. Like, how could I even be here
Yeah.
without having that name? It wouldn't make any sense.
I love it. It's so interesting to me because I mentioned when you got here, right? You got the accent, you've got the leather jacket. You're clearly a guy prepared for the warmth. But tell me a little bit of the backstory. So you grew up in Canada, and then how'd you end up in Omaha?
Yeah, when I was a kid, so I grew up in a little town. I was born in Saskatchewan, and I grew up in a little town about an hour southwest of Winnipeg called Carmen. And when I was a little kid and other guys wanted to be an astronaut or, a fireman or whatever, I wanted to be an American.
Okay.
And I understood that America was founded on principles and not just, a patch of land that some king used to run. And I remember going to the hardware store when I was 12 and buying a flag kit, much like we would adapt onto a shovel now, and opening my bedroom window and mounting it onto the external frame of the window, and my dad coming home from work. So I came down and stayed in my room, and that was just my journey. And I married my first wife because she was cute, and her mom knew we were cuddling, and she was the pastor's daughter. So her mom was giving some feedback to my mom on what might be going on that shouldn't be.
Mm.
And I knew she was in nursing school, so I knew I could move to the United States if I married her. And strangely enough, that wasn't enough to sustain a marriage. But we moved to the United States in '96, and we lived 5 years in Seattle, and then we were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a couple of years, and, or we were there, I guess I was there total almost 10,
Mm.
and, we parted company, and, my wife and I had, my Leah, my wife now and forever, had gone to school together, but would never have dated. She was a little too young for me at that point, and respectable. She was
Mm.
the, valedictorian yearbook editor, and I was not a guy you wanted your daughter around. And we connected on Facebook, and took her a month to accept my friend request. And here we are. That was in 2009. And there's, things I'm good at and things I'm not, more of the latter. But I think she thinks we have a great marriage,
Mhm.
and I agree with her. And that's the best thing. So that's sort of the
I love it.
story of my journey. But
And you've been here since '09.
I've been in Nebraska since 9, in the US since 96.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so when I think of Canada, I'm curious, like growing up, did you play hockey? Were you into sports? Like what
Yeah.
was your what was your physical fitness
Yeah.
like growing
So
up?
it's funny. I was a scrawny kid. And in our little town, you just need enough guys for every team. So there's always room. And, I was 5'10" or 5'9" and 13/16 when I was 12, and, maybe 120 pounds. and I probably graduated at 150, and I was fast. I was a good baseball player, probably my best sport, but
Mm.
that's a 15-game season, and your batting order is made up based on how many goals you scored last year.
Yeah.
And I was a pretty average hockey player, but I played everything.
Mm.
And I wasn't really great at anything, but kind of good enough at anything that, I could show up and play F3 softball and think, wow, you must have played a lot of ball. Like, played a bit, but I was never going to go anywhere with it. And,
Yeah.
and then I started to fill out a bit, and I worked out pretty hard in my early 20s just so I could get a girlfriend.
Mm.
And then I won a trip. I did my job properly. I sold cell phones, and I was a little regional manager. I went to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, China for 3 weeks, all paid. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
And I wasn't the most adventurous eater then, and so I would have like a 15,000 calorie breakfast just to sustain me. And I put on almost 20 pounds in a couple of weeks on that trip. And my body learned how to be fat. So I was a skinny guy, and then I was a skinny fat guy, and then I was an F3 guy.
Okay.
So it's been a cool journey.
What at what point did you stop working out then once kind of life got to rolling or
Yeah, like, I played hockey till I was 50 a couple times a week. And
okay.
so you think that keeps you in shape, but it doesn't. And
Yeah.
especially if you stay in the dressing room and guzzle beer
It's a beer,
afterward.
yeah, the beer and pretzel league.
Yeah. And so I worked out, pretty consistently for about 2 years in my 20s. And, I was never into running or I never needed to be fit because it just sort of followed me around, or I thought it did.
Oh.
I just wanted to have like a muscle somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, by the time I found you guys, I was like comically out of shape.
Mm.
It was a big deal for us to go for a walk.
Mm.
It was sad and scary.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you started at Coronado because one of the reasons when, I think Patton and Mulligan and ultimately Gator, right, sort of came up with this concept of Coronado, it was to reach these guys that we weren't.
I was the
reachable.
poster child.
Yeah. So I love that you started.
Yeah, it was a blessing. I went there a lot, and then it kind of felt wrong, and then it felt right to graduate. And so I don't go there a ton anymore. I've backslidden. I got into great, for what I thought and still think was great shape. My wife's high school reunion was in July, not this summer, but the year before. And so I had to go back to that looking pretty buff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of, I got more into, I want to do weights. I don't want to run anymore. And then I got lazy, and I went from 6 days a week to 4. And, I'm up 15 pounds from where I was, and kind of starting to dial it back in. So my New Year's thing is, I've got a couple of specific events and targets, and so yeah, it's time to dial it back. But it's hard, I started to get banged up. Like, I'm not young anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent too much time around retweet and pitchfork, and just had to rethink how I engage. And I feel like that's probably normal for a lot of guys. I'm
Yeah.
3 years and a bit into this, and you're constantly evolving in who you are and how it fits. But I could never leave. Like, I think I'll be doing this when I'm 80
Yeah.
because I'd miss you.
Yeah.
Like, I just, no matter what I do, I've got a full gym at home. I need to use it more, but I could never not do this 3 or 4 days a week at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's fun to watch guys go through that. And I'm always sad when guys that you really revere, which is, my wife's funny. I'll bring up somebody's name, and if I don't say, oh, he's just the greatest guy. If I don't say that, she'll be like, wow, you really don't like him. And it very rarely happens.
Yeah.
But I just, the community is so cool and obviously so necessary for guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, it's one of those things where the only downside to reducing the number of times I post per week is there's like all these new guys that show up, and I'm at a point where I don't feel like I'm not with them enough consistently to like build those relationships. But you see them out there, and they're still, they're guys trying to get better, just like me, which is really, really good. What, as you think about your journey, because you mentioned, right, you started at Coronado and then a year later are able to do Murphs. Was that like, how did that happen?
I
Like, did you
still can't do a pull up, so that's
okay,
the
yeah.
disclaimer there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, just little by little, like I remember a couple of moments specifically. I remember going to the canyon one morning and we did a string of pearls. I'm like, oh my goodness,
Mm,
I have to call an Uber.
yeah.
And Gunner just stayed on me and no, we can do it. And we were a long ways from the flag, or to me, it seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And he just, nursed me and encouraged me and nudged me and nagged me back. I'm like, oh, he did that.
Mm,
And I remember going to the Spike, the Golden Spike, and Murch was there, and his pre-thing was a lap around that property, which is a mile
yeah.
and a quarter.
Oh,
I'm like, good luck with that. It was icy, and I just kept my eyes on the guy in front of me, and next thing you know, I'd run that mile and a quarter without stopping. It
wow.
was unthinkable. I would have said, no way I can do that.
Yeah.
And that's just how it happens. You just add a little bit and you push yourself, or somebody pushes you.
Um,
I'm not the best at, especially when I don't like running. I'm not good at it. 5K is kind of my ceiling, but you have to get pushed little by little to get there. And then you realize that you've got something you didn't think you had.
yeah. That's awesome. What do you think when you think about, so one of the assumptions maybe that I'm making is that, being at Brookside, you've maybe been involved in other men's groups or things, but what do you think was different about F3 that made you come back the second and third and 3 years later? Like, what was been different?
There's an unconditional love element to it.
Mm,
That's just, it's a place, and I'm pretty self-confident, so I don't need a lot of coddling, but I just love that people can come and be who they are, and it's pretty hard to color outside the lines. Our acceptance and tolerance for people's personality is pretty strong, and I just love that.
mm,
And um, even in a church, you don't always get that. There's just something different. I don't know what we do to create that, what's in the recipe that creates that. But, I've been involved in every imaginable kind of group, and there's nothing like it.
mm. Yeah, it's a secret sauce. It's the combo of so many things, but and in a certain sense, I really love that we're trying to help each guy figure out who he is. We're not trying to make him into who we think he ought to
No,
be,
God
or
forbid they become like me.
yeah, or
I'm
be,
pretty
yeah,
okay with you, but
yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah.
that's the best part. You know, I think of some of the guys that I've met and watched, and I remember saying to Gator early on, he's bugging me to queue, and I hadn't queued yet, and said, "No, that's okay. That's a personal development thing for guys who need a little more confidence." And he just scolded me.
Okay.
Said, "Nope, you're taking pennies out of the jar, and you're not putting pennies in." And so, hey, I thought, yeah, he's right. I'm one of the things I say to my employees is I like being wrong. Like
Mm,
I'm excited when I'm wrong.
mhm,
And there's where I was wrong. And so, it was a chance to show guys, like, God knows what they'd think I'd have to contribute, but um, it is important for everybody. And I I I think of all the people that have come through and the metamorphosis that you see in them. And I asked his permission to mention him specifically. So I'll talk a bit about I remember when Mrs. B came out.
mm,
He was a pretty shy guy, and I'm married to somebody who's pretty shy. And he just didn't have a lot to say and kind of just smiled. And over the time he's been part of this, he's just bloomed, and he's a leader, and he's somebody people look up to, and he's way more outgoing and engaging. And I asked him one day, I said, is that how you are here because you're comfortable with us,
mm,
and you're obviously just, the wattage has turned way up, or is that how you are all day every day in everything you do? He said, no, it's who I've become.
mm.
And I've, just experienced that level of personal growth and confidence. And I just, it's unconditional love. Like, we just, allow people and encourage people to just, you know, be everything that they've got in them. And bring out parts of themselves that maybe they were bottling up. So
Mm.
it's so cool to watch. And as somebody who's a little more outgoing and stupid and probably annoying at times, I think if there's anything I do that's good in this, it's giving guys like that the license to say, "Hey, I can be."
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I love it, and the number of stories like that, I think is just it blows me away. Sometimes I think about the number of guys that you're like, "Wow, that guy." I think another guy, I didn't ask his permission, but I'm gonna say it anyway, another guy that I notice, has just kind of been unlocked is Katrina. I don't know
yes,
if you see,
yeah,
they start
yeah,
like the quiet guy who all of a sudden he's talking smack to some of the other
yeah,
guys about sports and some of
yeah,
those things and
yeah,
just, giving it a little extra squeeze when we go around and hug, you're
yeah.
just sort of like, okay, like something has kind of clicked and this guy now realizes he too has the power to lead, wherever he's at. What you mentioned a couple times, and I think, and I noticed this about you that you're confident, you're a little more outgoing. Have you always been that way,
Yeah.
or okay?
Yeah, you guys have seen some of the I'm sure I've heard people shaking their heads saying, "You mean you were worse than this?" But, you know, um, cocky, mouthy, but, yeah, I've always been willing to say what I thought.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's the way to put it. And, I'm moving up on Medicare age and, finally, I feel like almost where I manage that mostly for good.
Mm,
But yeah, I've always been comfortable spoken in front of thousands of people
mm,
a bunch of times, and it doesn't, doesn't cause me any stress at all. I feel comfortable, like, and I know that's unique. Like a lot of
mhm.
people, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
They're just shy.
It was your mom or dad like that, or
My dad maybe a little bit more so, but probably neither. Well, yeah, my dad would have been.
yeah.
Um, my dad's story was different and like, he's from an era when his dad died when he was really young. His mom raised 7 kids,
Mm,
and he was an adult when he was 10. Like if he wanted anything other than hand me down clothes, he wanted a ball glove or bike or anything, he had to go earn it.
yeah.
And so I think that put a confidence in him. I had a complicated my parents are both gone now.
Mm.
I had a complicated relationship with them, and, partly they hate America. And, so it's just drove them nuts till the very end that I would live here. But, my dad was a guy who valued, helping guys that have less because he did pretty well, but he started out with less than nothing, and so, he was a great role model. Even though we didn't always see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, emulate him a ton and a lot of what I do, and probably he wishes a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
He was pretty confident, maybe just a little more restrained.
Yeah. No, it's cool, and I wanna talk a little bit more about that once we talk about third F stuff, because I know you definitely have a passion for helping other people, but talk me through then, so as you come into this group, you're already outgoing and confident. How did you start building or forming some of those relationships? I feel like you've got I don't know if you have a formal shield lock
I
or,
do, yeah.
but I feel like you've gotten there, right, with a lot of guys. What was the process like, or was it pretty easy for you?
I like people and I want to know about them. Like,
Mm,
and we've
yeah,
talked a bit. Like, I know a fair bit about you and
yeah,
what you, or, what you do and stuff. Um, and so, the more you talk about yourself, the less you know about other people. And I do a little bit of talking about myself probably, but, I never miss coffee. I think I missed it once. I went to the Labyrinth or the Maze, probably the Labyrinth, and missed the turn into Starbucks, and
uh,
then you're like, it's a 20-minute drive to get back,
yeah,
and I didn't go back. And I think that might be like maybe a handful of times in 3 years I didn't go to coffee and, I'm there like I'm the last one to leave or one of them. And so I've just had a chance to chat with a lot of people, and I always am curious to know, what they're all about, and I think those bridges just build naturally if you wanna
mhm.
let people talk about themselves, which I like hearing for all their life and about.
What would you say, like, to maybe other guys that are maybe shy, or maybe even guys that are more like you that are outgoing? Like, is there a way that we could better foster some of that communication, or Any advice there?
Wow. I always wonder, and this pertains to a different environment, but a different issue. But I feel like, a more structured way to follow up on new guys. We put a lot on that guy that EH'd them, and
Mm-hmm.
that's so I'll let that idea come and go. Man, I don't know if there's a structured way of that. That's the most effective and meaningful and lasting when it's the most organic. Um, but we I think we have a lot of great environments for people to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I'm more inclined. I guess cafeteria is second F.
Yeah.
And so if somebody were to say, "Well, are you deeply involved in second F?" In a lot of ways, I'd say no. I have this weird thing. I love my wife
Uh-huh.
so much,
Yeah.
and so going and drinking beer with the guys at 4 in the afternoon, it's not my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do probably second F in different ways, and I do a lot of third F. Um, yeah, I don't know that I could put my finger on that, how we make that happen. If you feel a curiosity about people and you want to, you know, be more comfortable around them, it'll happen. I don't know. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
probably going to fail that course.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of like, if you find yourself maybe more on the outgoing side, channel that energy. I love what you said there, right? The more I talk about myself, the less I get to learn about other
Yeah.
people. And, I know I've been guilty of that at times too, where I'm outgoing, but
Yeah.
sometimes I just want to be heard to be heard. And
Yeah.
I could just channel that to get to know a guy that's maybe not talking.
Well, I think what's hard with cafeteria too, and I'm big champion of this, is a lot of these guys are at a different stage. You have little kids.
Yeah.
You probably have a wife that would rather you're helping her out in the morning, and
Yeah.
I'll see guys saying, "Oh, come on, everything's good at home. You can come do coffee with us." Or guys will say, "No, I mean, my wife's cool with me being here talking to Wentworth and Canadian Bacon till 7:30." She's not.
Yeah.
And I'm a empty nester. I've got grandkids. I own my own business. I can be wherever I want to be, within certain parameters. And, um, but I'm the first when I see these guys that I know have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, get home.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't be a dad forever. Like every second you spend with them is huge.
Hmm.
And so, no, don't follow me and, whatever other obnoxious person to cafeteria. But that does limit the ability for some of those guys to engage. And, that's just part of life. You're in different stages at different times, and we'll be there for you, And
Yeah.
so I know guys that, they can only come to cafeteria or only do events in certain, and, feel like if we have an awareness of that to say, "Hey, I don't always get to see that guy. I know he's going home being a great dad."
Yeah.
Um, you know, now's the time to really spend some time with,
Mm.
invest in him, and let them make me better.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love just the idea even of like if you notice a guy doing that, just affirming him and that
Yeah.
he's making the right
Oh,
choice, instead of because I have done that at times and that you do sort of get this FOMO, right? That's like, oh man, I wish I could go. And I
yeah.
think just reminding guys that like you're definitely doing the right thing by going home to
Oh,
be with your family and
I
support.
see the guys that only pre-run because they
Yeah.
need like
Yep.
6:30 isn't going to cut it. They need to
Yeah.
be home at 6 or 5:30.
Yeah.
And I always celebrate that. I just think there's nothing more important. I've been married twice, and my first wife, her dad was a great guy. Is a great guy, still with us. I haven't spoken to him in forever.
Mm.
Um, but he was a pastor, and he was into that,
Mhm.
and it was great. He was the pastor at our church, and kind of barely knew his daughter's names, and in different ways, they all kind of that left an imprint on them, and had a lot to do with their direction and how they manage life. And then Leah's dad was, on a scale of 1 to 10 was like 44, like just the finest dad that you could ever have as a little girl. And you see the difference,
Mhm.
so obviously, dads want to be around their sons, and yes, raise them to be like me, and let's go
Uh,
throw the ball. But good dads make good daughters. And I, really, especially the guys that I know have little girls at home, man, they They need to see you being the greatest example of what they should look for, because
Yeah.
they're gonna
Yep.
find somebody, and their self-esteem needs to come from the right places, and they'll
Mhm.
make the right choices. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite things, is just watching guys be good dads.
Yeah.
There's so many guys in F3 that are just such great dads, and I think we foster fatherhood
Yeah.
really, really well. And, so you wonder what his secret sauce. Maybe that they feel that things that are really do matter are validated and
Mhm.
encouraged.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love that. I know from my perspective, we had one daughter before I started F3 and then have had two more since. And every time, right, when that baby's born, it's like no F3 for at least a
Yeah,
month or two. I've always felt welcome coming back to the group
yeah,
because guys are always encouraging of that, right? But I would be curious. So you mentioned you've been married twice,
yeah,
but you also have referenced several times like you think you've got a wonderful marriage. I love how you said it's a really weird thing that I just love my wife so
yeah.
much. We should all maybe aspire for that. But give us some
Now I'm gonna
wisdom
tear up.
or give us some wisdom or insight. Like
You know,
how do we do
um,
that?
I think back to when I was married before, and there's a million things you can dissect out of that. You can throw mud against the wall, but we did dumb things that drove us, like, as a goofy example. um, my ex-wife would come home, and, there'd be stuff around.
Mm,
And, the kids' thing would be on that little counter that's higher in your kitchen. And she'd get all bent about that. And she'd put it, in that corner cabinet over there. There's not a chance on earth anyone's ever going to find it.
mm,
And so it was a running dialogue that Mama hides things. Well, of course, that's just me training the boys to throw rocks at her in a subtle way.
mm,
And, when Leah and I got together, I don't know that we ever sat down and just decided to do this, but, I mentioned I bring her coffee in bed.
mm,
We spend every waking moment trying to figure out how to make the other one.
mm,
Like, I mean, in the truest, most kind of like weird sense. Like,
mhm.
and it just, when one does it, the other wants to do it. And it's impossible to stop. Like, I used to play a lot of golf. I was a 4 handicap for
Mm,
most of a decade. Um, and, we got doing our thing, and she didn't really like golf. I got her all decked out, got her cool stuff. She likes the clothing and, the matching lime green golf bag and clubs. And she's kind of good at it, and she just hates it.
mm,
So she hadn't touched a club in 3 years. And so consequently, when in my first marriage, I wonder why I'm not still in that one. I played two or three times a week. I practiced a lot.
yeah.
And now just, I play 18 twice a year and play 9, 4 or 5 times in a league,
Mhm.
out my back door. And that's tons, because to me at this point, getting up on a Saturday morning and, being gone for 5 or 6 hours, just not even vaguely appealing,
Yeah.
other than maybe some specific special occasion or something. I'd rather get up and, end up you know, going to a farmer's market
Yeah.
and, hanging with her. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's not something you feel. It's
Mm,
something you do. So people say, well, I don't love her anymore. Well, you control that,
mhm.
just get up and do it.
Yeah.
And if you do it, it, it will create reciprocation.
Yeah. Yeah, what you described with the golf reminds me. Our pastor is sort of ingrained. Anytime I'm asking about marriage stuff, he's like Ephesians 5:25, right? Love your wives as Christ did the church and gave himself up for her,
Yeah.
which means making some
Yeah.
sacrifices. And I think that's the reality, right? There are things that we enjoy that we like, but if they're pulling us too far away, and I'm the same way with golf, as I just can't justify the time. And some of it's my kids are young, but also, my wife and I go once a year on my clean date,
Yeah.
and we go together, and
Yeah.
it's a date,
Okay.
and we do that, just once a
Very
year,
cool.
and that's enough. But I think it's something that same as you, right? It's just justifying that time. I'd rather be home.
Well, and she nags me to do it more.
Yeah.
Like if she hears that some of the guys are bugging me, go.
Uh,
And that in itself,
yeah.
both those things feed, like when you make a sacrifice,
Yep.
your wife sees that, and she knows I love golf,
Yeah.
and so, it all just adds to the inertia.
Hmm.
Hey, It's, uh, it's easy, except it's not,
Yeah.
right? It's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's maybe Tim Keller. He wrote a book with his wife, Meaning of Marriage, but he says it's not 50-50, right? It's like
100
a
a
hundred,
100.
a hundred,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you're not just trying to meet in the middle, right?
No,
And yeah,
no.
I love that example.
Yeah.
Talk to me about kids. I guess I knew you had kids, but are kids
Yeah.
from from both marriages, or
Yeah,
talk
so
us
we
through
have
that?
4 between us.
Okay.
Man, this is a sad story. Have minimal so I have 2 boys.
Right.
One of them's, an attorney, and it's probably not a secret that my politics lean a touch to the right.
Mhm.
I haven't bottled that up too hard. And my oldest son is a genius. He was, editor of the school paper at the University of Texas, National Merit Scholar finalist.
Wow.
And he's in DC, and he's a lawyer, so it's terrifying to me. Um, but he's a good kid, just got married. And then my youngest one, who's the youngest of the 4, got his girlfriend pregnant when she was a freshman and he was a sophomore in college, and she looked 12.
Oh wow.
And he's more like me, for better or for worse. And so they have another one, and there's a couple guys that invested, and they own, I think, 5 or maybe 6 franchises of a bar that
Okay.
you can, and he runs all of them. So he
Okay.
probably does
Here in
great.
town,
No,
or
in Dallas.
okay.
Probably does great. And then my wife's one daughter lives in Ottawa, and that's just to the max strained. Like there'll never be any communication.
That's in Canada, right?
Yeah, in
Okay.
Ottawa, that's the capital. And then Emily, Leah's oldest daughter, lives here. Her husband came out a bunch for a while. We call them Icebox.
Okay.
And then they have a little one. He's going to be 3 in March, and he was born 6 weeks early
Mm.
and wanted to be born more early than that. Um, and just a combination of their genetics. Icebox is, I learned this: big guys lie. Like,
Oh.
I'm 5'9" and 13'16", so of course I'm 5'10".
Right.
And I think Nathan's 6'7", but he says 6'4".
Okay.
And then Emily is all of my height. And so their son's a big strapping dude. He's, 2 3/4 and looks like he's 6.
Yeah.
And he just needed more space and had to get out.
Right.
And so when he was born, Icebox kind of stopped coming out. And he's I enjoy meeting high wattage people at 5:30 in the morning and all the noise. And he's not that kind of guy.
Sure.
So I'd love to see him come back out, but he works out hard. And if you're listening, Icebox, he's a great example of guys who could use more community.
Mhm.
So he works at the United Way, and our boy Mother Goose just joined there.
Oh
So
yeah.
you'll get a little more encouragement from Mother Goose to come out.
Heck yeah. I love Mother Goose.
Well, that's kind of our dynamic, and it's, divorce is not a good thing. It's been a great thing,
Mm.
but it's not a great thing. So
Yeah.
it's,
What you mentioned that you love watching guys just be good fathers. What do you think it was your experience as a father that gave you sort of that where you enjoy that, or what I don't know, talk us through
yeah,
like.
like I feel like I was an okay dad, or probably even a good dad. But in going through the divorce, and then I just ended up, I wanted to be here, and so that meant giving up a lot of stuff, and then there's all the chaos that goes on, and so my relationships with my boys are pretty surface at this point. They're
Mm.
maybe turning, but I just know how much it matters,
Yeah.
and so I just if you're watching how people grow and mature, you know that parenting matters.
Mm.
So I mentioned the example of my wife and my first wife, just the difference in the parenting that they got, and then the end result of who they were I think that's really ingrained in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm often thinking of, as I'm parenting or fathering my girls, like, it's you can't over control it, right? You can't be perfect at it, but also like if I can be better, just continuing to get better, and ultimately somebody had mentioned this to me the other day that the legacy we leave ultimately is our faith.
Yeah.
And so in my house, we tend to focus a lot on that. And it's interesting. I don't know. I also see some of my flaws in my kids. I don't know
Yeah.
any insight or I guess any
Oh,
advice,
so
any
my
key learnings.
stepdaughter and I are so funny. And we have a love-hate relationship. It's mostly love, but we are so much alike. And Leah was such a good girl growing up.
Mm,
She was pure as the driven snow. And so, things that teenagers might want to do, she'd and so Emily, would want to maybe sneak off and stay at her boyfriend,
mm,
things like that at an age where, you're really not cool with that yet.
yeah,
And so she'd make up some story about what they're all doing, and Leah'd be like, "Oh, okay, that'll be fun." I'm like, "That's not that is not what is
you're
happening."
calling her
And
out.
yeah, and so I'd catch Emily, and so it was a fun journey with her. Just we were so alike, and so now we're pretty good buddies. So
Mm.
I just think that, the daughters thing, I put a post on, and we have neighbors, and if my neighbor was F3 Skinnerd,
Oh
came
yeah.
out a couple of times and, never really clicked for him. They have 3 little girls, and they're the best little girls and the best parents on earth. Their oldest one is, 12 or 13 and is a big girl now. And so her way of processing, how do I think my way through this? And I'm sure it's, a hard and confusing time for a little girl or a young lady, is she's on their trampoline, like, and it's right outside our bedroom window. So it's like, oh, Clara's on the trampoline again. She must, be a lot of teenage angst going on there. And
Yeah.
I always refer to these times as the Kardashian era,
Oh yeah.
that the influences on your daughters, they're so awful.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just a ton of work to give them the self-esteem and help them draw their inner self-worth from the right places to say,
Yeah.
no, I don't need to be a bimbo. I can be,
Yeah.
a real person. This is important. That's not.
I love it. I would you say in the example you gave with Emily, I think I know the answer, but curious your perspective, like staying in that fight and sort of,
Yeah.
I don't know, talk us through
Yeah,
that.
no, I remember, there was a point in her life where she had some stuff going on that I wasn't cool with. And, we sat down and I said, and I started out, I was just the idiot that slept with her mom. Right.
Right.
And, and so one day I remember sitting down with her and saying, I kind of play this role of your dad, and, I don't have to.
Mm,
Like, if you don't want me to, I won't. But, if I'm going to, I'm going to, and you've met me, I'm not going to do it, you know, um, in a bucket like you're going to hear. And, and so, there was some tears and stuff. And, no, I need you to.
mm,
And her dad was living in England, and they never got each other. We have no relationship now. And I
mhm.
tried hard to foster that. Just wasn't going to happen. So yeah, it's it's been a fun journey, and in the end, you think they do want it, but they also want what they want, and moment to moment, those things can come into conflict with one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah. I love it. Meg Meeker's got a book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, and she references like fight for them.
Yeah,
Like some of what they're doing
yeah,
in those phases is testing,
yeah,
and showing them that like I love you too much to let you
yeah.
just do what you want,
Oh,
but
and it's so hard out there. Stuff. I watch what the culture is makes normal and acceptable.
mhm.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Well, talk me through it. We're sort of moving through the concentrica here, so I want to hear your experience with the shield lock thing. How is that?
Yeah.
How did you form that, or what's
So
that like?
I love the idea so much, and I go to a bigger church, so I get
Mhm.
that, it's sort of the equivalent of the small group.
Yeah.
F3 is 3,000 and change guys, but I think it's 600 guys is the number I always throw out that
Yeah.
really play the game regularly. And so I kind of looked at, some of them that are out there with a little bit of envy and thought, wow, that'd be cool. And, you know, there was a nudge here and a nudge there, and nothing really happened. And then I know, I've known High Point for a long time,
Oh yeah.
and he was the easiest EH ever. I sent him a text and a link, said, hey, I do this.
Yeah.
And there's a new site that's going to open in Bennington next Saturday. So, well, I'll be away next Saturday, but where are you going tomorrow morning? And he was at Wolf Den, and that was that. And so, he and I go back. We were in a small group together in church and that sort of thing. And so, he and I just sort of stayed tight. And then, we talked about a shield lock, and it was sort of going to be he and I, and then, we said, okay, we want old guys, right? Like, I don't want to hear your problems about your kids at home.
Right.
And so, we have the young guy who's too young and too fit and too cool to really be one of us, but he is Hotwire.
Oh yeah.
He's out running half marathons and stuff. It's kind of
Yeah.
but we're okay with it. And he's, don't know, mid-50s.
Yeah, I think so.
And then
yeah.
Moonshine, I don't know how well you know Moonshine, but he aged by chicken hawk. What more
Okay.
can you say?
Yeah.
And so he's cut from that cloth, just as fine a human as you could have possibly imagine. Very, very deep faith.
Yeah.
Just, a role model. And he's knocking on the door of two respects.
Mm.
And then Q-Tip
Okay.
and High Point are both double respect. So there's 5 of us, and the term got thrown out somewhere along that we would be the respectables.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a good group. I talked a lot with some other guys in shield locks, and how many's the right and how often. And I know there are shield locks where if we all got to be together.
Yeah.
And that's hard. So we struggle to always be. We try and do the every other Friday, and they're all way out this part of the world, and I'm 102nd in Harrison, so we have to be accommodating. The Spike is as far as we go that way.
Okay.
So we tend to go the Spike and the Armory and one other one. So
Okay.
rotate that way and do the coffee together. And we've done some other stuff, and it's only a 6-month-old thing, so it's gaining its inertia, but it's just the best bunch of guys.
Yeah.
So
What would you say? Do you guys meet and go over stuff, or just talk about
we
what's
have,
going on in
we
life,
do
or-
a scripture memorization that High Point leads, and we all fail miserably at.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say, do we have a structured study? No, probably not. But I think our conversations are more intentional than they would be at cafeteria by a pretty significant margin.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. It's, just a little bit more, a little deeper.
Yeah, and you're all on the same page when it comes to faith and that sort of thing, right? So there's you can kind of cut through some of the, you can get to the point a little bit more. Yeah, I love it. Talk to me too. Before we got started, we were talking about just sort of this like F3 being this space where you have guys from all ages. So curious your thoughts on the like Whetstone. Have you had a chance to engage in anything like that, or talk me through just sort of the uniqueness of?
I love that. The multi-generational aspect of what we do is just so uncommon in our society. And I just kind of went on a tangent about how we created a shield lock with just us, and we were going to exclude everyone else.
Yeah.
And so, there's an example. But, it's so fun. And the guys that are, maybe more the stage you're at, I feel like I'm almost old enough to be your dad or somewhere in that zip code.
Yeah.
And so, the guys that are in their 30s and have kids that are little and trying to figure stuff out. And for whatever reason, sometimes they think guys like me have wisdom.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, we have experience. And so I really savor that. And the energy that I'm able to, these guys don't have any idea how much energy they give me. And just, they keep me young.
Yeah.
And if I can stop one guy from maybe making a mistake of, something stupid that, I've done lots of, I just think that's good. It's our society used to be more that way. You think back 200 years ago, you grew up at your dad's hip.
Yeah.
And if he was a blacksmith, you're probably going to be a blacksmith.
Yeah.
We were raised by men. And then, the Industrial Revolution came, and our dads went to work or to one of the world wars or, what have you in the 1900s, early 1900s. And we were raised by women.
Mm-hmm.
And our culture is still tips that way a bunch. And so just to, have that dynamic where men of different stages are around each other is so cool. Like, the divorced dads and drinks.
Yeah.
And I've done a bunch of that, but, you end up kind of unofficially having those conversations and gives you a chance to say, hey, I remember somebody said to me, when you get on a plane, they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first,
Yeah.
and get yourself good with who you are, and be that example, and you know really look carefully at, am I being somebody I'd be proud of through what could be a difficult time?
Right.
In 20 years, can I look back and say, hey, I did the right things. I didn't get caught up in the stupidity and, the petty, sc- skirmishing over nothing. And I did a bit of that.
Yeah.
And my wife kind of helped me fine tune some of that. Yeah, there's just so many speed bumps on the road out there. And if you can help people avoid them, it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Heck yeah. Liberty Core Real Estate is your homegrown real estate broker. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, whether personal or investment, Armando, aka Brian, and Megan Michaels' company is ready to serve you. With Command Center in Old Town Elkhorn and agents all throughout the metro, they are more than ready to guide and serve you in your next real estate endeavor. Whether your next move needs to happen now or in 5 years, call or text Armando at 402-770-2165 to get your questions answered. And a special offer for F3 Nation PAX members, Liberty Core will donate $250 to your sponsor of choosing for every closed transaction. Stop looking, start finding today with Liberty Core Real Estate. Well, I love it. And I'm curious your thoughts on the, so fitness, fellowship, faith on that third F piece. What, I know you've mentioned a little bit, but would love to hear, like, growing up, was that something that was part of family
Yeah.
life, or where you at today from a faith perspective?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a fun journey. We went to what's in Canada called the United Church, so it'd be most similar probably to a Methodist church here.
Okay.
And the one I went to was barely a church, and now it's pretty much straight up a social club.
Hmm.
And so we went to church all the time, and said your prayers, and you did some rudimentary Bible study for little kids. And then when I was about 14 or 15, my parents, went through a fairly significant faith thunderbolt.
Hmm.
And so we switched to the Episcopal Church, or in Canada, the Anglican. And but became a big deal. And I kind of gathered that inertia, and I ended up being the diocesan youth programming council chair, and I would
Oh,
have
wow.
lunch with the bishop once a quarter. And so I probably lived it a little bit, but I was still out doing stuff on the weekends that, you know, um, not really what God wanted me to do.
Hmm.
And then I just kind of kept finding more and more of it. And it's funny, I was married to a pastor's daughter, and she really didn't want to be part of the church.
Hmm.
Yes, there's probably reasons for that make sense. And my faith just became stronger and stronger. And then Leah was married to a guy who was a bit older than her, bunch older than her, and was a British communist atheist.
Oh,
And
okay.
and so she was raised in the same church I was originally, and hers was shut off. And so when we got together, I remember coming up to visit for the very first weekend, and we had literally made wedding plans before we'd been in the same room.
Oh, wow.
I was living in Dallas, and we were like 14-year-olds on the phone till 2 in the morning.
Hmm.
And so the first weekend I came up, I said, well, where would we go to church? I don't know. So, that, and so my helping or being part of her going on that journey really kind of tightened it up for me. And
Hmm.
I would say where I'm at now, and maybe a lot of guys are like this, maybe they're not. I feel like I have a very strong faith. I'm becoming more and more scripturally learned.
Hmm.
I think where I may be at a bit of a valley in this exact moment in my life is, a component of that is a relationship.
Yeah.
But I'd say my relationship could be a lot stronger.
Mhm.
It's more I know, I believe, I think, but it's not enough, in my opinion, of
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm turning my life to Christ. I'm, more like following what I think, and most of the time I am supposed to.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't would be curious. I know for me, one of the things I've started doing, so I've always read scripture, but for like head knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Almost like for the purpose of debate or like
Yeah.
to, and I'm just starting probably this last year to really try to understand and know the character of God to
Yeah.
try to foster that relationship. Sort
Yeah.
of like, well, how do you build a relationship? Well, you get to know somebody
Yeah.
and sort of who they are. But I don't know what your journey's been like there.
Yeah. I need to be better there. I don't have the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always have something to,
It's a process for sure.
yeah.
But talk me through kind of in F3, right? We kind of split third F is like, spiritual faith and then also like community service
Yeah.
aspect of things. And I know recently I've been hearing you say a lot about this blood drive. I don't know how many guys you've called to get signed up, but I feel like you also open up your home to people during the
Yeah. I've done
holidays.
that.
Talk us
Um,
through why is that meaningful for you?
I just, my dad was really driven by, he had nothing.
Mm,
And so, you know, really being there for people who, were in a difficult situation. And I remember I was a pretty average athlete. My brother was, if he was as demented as me, he might have played pretty good hockey and an NHL shot, and, was a bunch bigger than me, but I hope he's kind of soft.
oh,
Wasn't,
okay.
you have to be a little nuts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had lots of that, very little else.
Hmm.
And, and, and so when my brother played, AAA hockey, it's even back in those days, 10, 15 grand a year. And my dad was like, hey, we got to put a fund together. We'll all throw in a grand or two so that kids who can't afford it, there'll be a
Wow.
place to draw from. And these other dads are looking at him like he's got, something wrong with him. And like, no, 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 I don't want any kids that, you know, can't afford now to come play and take my kid's spot on this team.
Yeah.
And that's just how he was wired. So I don't know. I just, I like doing that. Um, I just find satisfaction in doing community service stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's cool.
I don't know if I can unpack it any more deeply than that.
Yeah. Well, it's cool too. I mean, I think it relates back to what we were talking about with parenting, right? That like, you saw that modeled, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of something that you learned and then as you got older, you did it and you enjoy
Yeah.
it. And I would love to hear, so one of the things we love to get guys feedback on, right? So you got to launch a site and leadership
Yeah.
as part of our mission. And so would love to just hear, you also lead your own business, right? So from
Yeah.
a leadership perspective, would love to hear like some of the things in F3. I don't know, would be cool to hear the origin of the blue line
Well,
and
a bit of that. It's a dicey story. I don't know if I feel like I'm wading into a minefield. Obviously there was an idea that floated around there for a year or so,
yeah.
and it remained defined differently or undefined. Just a lot of guys and a lot of cooks in the kitchen there. And, I remember one day sitting at cafeteria after the ruckus and Star-Lord and, Walleye saying, so when are we going to do the Millard North thing? And I said, I think that's died. There's just too many conflicting ideas, and I'm, probably acting like a child and frustrated. And so, I'm just not in on that. And they said, no, we're going to do that. So let's do a pop up next week. So, as much credit or blame, because I know it was a contentious thing with guys, and there's still some guys that are a little chafed about that. Um, we had a pop up the next week, no social media. It wasn't on the schedule. Just
Yeah.
sent a few text messages, and you know the story. 25 guys showed up,
Hmm.
and away we went. And, it wasn't really anything other than that was a day and a spot that was open. Like,
Yeah.
really, if you look at the map now, and there are guys that would want to debate this. I don't know. But, on Friday, we have Golden Spike, Canopy, and Combine, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And on Thursday, there was nothing. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a
Yeah.
poor area for us.
Yep.
So you could have put any idiot in charge of that site and it would have taken. And, we had, obviously, when you're a site queue, especially a founding site queue, you kind of know the numbers.
Hmm.
And, we were about the best attended site in the city consistently.
Yeah.
And, but it's just location, 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 like all of the dozens
Yeah.
of realtors would say. And the part I loved the most about doing that was, I revere Beaver. I just,
Mm.
I always introduce him as somebody I'd want my daughter to marry.
Yeah.
And the nature of his job, for guys that don't know, he darn near runs. I oversell him a little, but he has a very, very important role at the Panama Canal.
He's basically in charge of it, is what I tell
Well,
people.
he would know, but
Yeah.
we'll say that. Yeah, we'll tell
He
people that.
runs the Panama Canal.
Yeah, I think so. And so his travel schedule makes it impossible for him to be a solo um psyche, which is maybe a feeling we have to get people past.
Yeah.
And we can come back to that in a sec. But as soon as we did that pop up, I got a text from Gator, and he said, "So you guys want to do this?" I'm like, "Well, been asking for a year, so yeah." And so it was launched, and I went to Beaver and said, "Hey, I want you to do this with me," and it worked great. He's a pre-run guy. I'm not,
No.
and I'm sort of busy being the host. Like I was always there at 5, making sure everybody had everything. Like this, you've met me.
Yeah.
And so it worked great, and it gave him a chance to, be part of it and to own every bit of half of it. And even though I, was more of the energy and stuff behind it, he wanted to have that experience, and he was super important in it all. And so now it's, we handed it to Smooth. I watched these guys struggle with finding somebody to take over sometimes. And about 6 months in, I said to Smooth Operator one morning, he's there at 20 after 5. I said, "Man, have you ever missed the blue line? Like, I think you've been here every single week."
Yeah.
"Yeah, I have." "So I should just give you this flag when we're done." So I was hoping you'd ask. Boom.
Done.
But yeah, it's a good location. What's really interesting, I did a lot of work, when I was we're gonna launch a site. I got some encouragement that I should do that from different people. And so I talked with 100 guys, where do you think a site is needed? Would you be part of it? I'm not just I'm a sales guy, not a marketing guy.
Yeah.
And so, I was pretty sure I knew who was gonna come, and it wasn't who ended up like it formed its own community completely. And a lot of them are guys that were not in F3 before the blue line was founded.
Yeah.
It became more bruiser friendly just because of who came out.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
It's just fun. It's like having a kid.
Yeah.
You watch it and you think it'll be this and it does that.
Mhm.
But it's been really fun. So
I love so from my perspective, being in a leadership role during that time, we talked about this at the very beginning, right? That like F3 is trying to get every guy to just be who they were created to be.
yeah.
And so you see, some of these guys that are like in a role that we've said, "Hey, you're going to be in charge of expansion," right?
Yeah.
And then they get some guy who's not in a leadership role saying, "Hey, we need a site here," and they're sort of like, "Well, wait a minute, that's not part of the plan."
Yeah, I had a couple of guys tell me that I could not do that because I did not have their approval.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm sure I've ruffled feathers before, so I apologize to all of them. They know who they are.
Yeah.
And it's worked out good, I guess.
Yeah.
Any idiot could run that location, and especially if they have Beaver for a partner.
Yeah.
So I got another one up my sleeve, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
There's probably another new site gonna appear out of nowhere that there's a little back channel undercurrent of demand for something.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool because you inevitably, right, you get different guys, right, and we're rubbing up against each other and kind of like getting in each other's world or space, and it just causes you to be better. I think understanding sort of like how we all interact, and the mission is the same. We all have the same goals.
Yeah.
And if we can just unlock one more guy, eliminate one more sad clown, I mean, and I think so. Just keep spreading it. And Gator's in charge now.
Well,
Anyway,
Gator's so good about that. Like I revere Gator so much, and he's so good at just he just do the right thing.
Yeah.
Be professional about it, and be so yeah. Hey, there's 600 guys that are active in this. They're not all going to agree on everything ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm amazed we can agree that today's Tuesday.
Right.
It is Tuesday, I think. And so, there'll be some ideas that maybe everybody doesn't share that'll turn into what they turn into, and then you
Yeah.
move on. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, the coolest thing I remember, as Gator and I were sort of working through transitioning, it really came down to the core principles, right?
yeah,
And sort of this idea of open to all men, and just continuing to ask ourselves, like, are the current things we're doing accessible and open to all men? And the answer was no, right? And it was like, boom, we need Coronado, right? Well,
yeah.
then you have this influx of guys where that's maybe where they're at from a fitness standpoint, and then you start saying, okay, well, now we got them here on Monday. How do we,
Where do we put them? Yeah,
yeah, and it's sort of, just really opened my eyes, to like, oh gosh, like we could chase the open to all men core principle
million. The
for
disco's been so
forever.
cool. I don't ever
Yeah.
do the disco, and I had a
Yep.
great running
Yep.
trash talking thing with Scuba when in that first year I went to every site. It
Yeah.
was some weird odyssey I thought I'd be on. And so I kept saying to Scuba, I don't have to go to the disco, do I? That's not a real site. F you, that's a real site. We have a
Uh-huh.
flag. And I'm
Yeah.
just tweaking them. I went only once because
Yeah.
I just am allergic to knee surgery.
Yeah.
But I'm an
Yeah.
old man. That's for those young guys.
Yeah.
But there's crazy sites now. They've got the one that does the mini triathlon.
Yeah.
The Ruckus was the coolest thing that's happened to F3.
Yeah.
There's just so many things that have happened in the time I've been that, you didn't anticipate and that were maybe different.
Yeah.
And, Bullseye's the best thing that happened. Like,
Yeah.
I just love him like a son. And, he caused us to reevaluate what was important
Yeah.
in different moments. And, I just, the joy I have for how his life trajectory has been altered is enormous.
Yeah.
What a great guy. And, you know, he's allowed a lot of other guys to say, I can do this. It's not all, you know, I love Farva, and Farva is welcoming, but
Yeah.
we're not all Farva,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, everything that happens has a shift that almost always is positive, and when it's not, we just okay,
Yeah.
next.
Redirect. Yeah. I love it. Well, this has been awesome. And I think, first of all, just appreciate you taking time to share your story. And I think the way that you lead, I think is a lot of fun. I think it's also really good to just push guys, right? I think to, just consider different perspectives, consider different leadership styles. There's this old concept of the tent pole leadership was an old Waffle House used to do this
Yeah.
CMT, and it's an old F3 concept, but this idea that you need every type of guy to hold up the tent, right? And you need every type of guy to lead in the way that they were built to lead. And so I think it just is a really cool example. So appreciate you sharing your story. Where we like to kind of land with guys is where, like, when you think about currently what's going on in life, what do you need prayers for, support for? When we see out there, what's something we should say?
I think the best way we lead is by following.
Mm.
If you go on my Twitter, X, not so with you. And, I'm a servant leadership guy. And
Mm.
I think all of us, especially guys
That's a quote you have on there?
yeah, on
No,
my
no.
X. And, he who he who wants to be great among you must be your servant.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what I do. And so, especially for guys like me and maybe a little bit you, but not as bad as me, that suck a lot of oxygen out of the room, try and be a servant, try and let the other guys have the stage. And I think that's how you lead, is by making other people feel valued.
Mm. Oh, so
That's
no
all.
prayer request for
Oh,
you?
sorry. Yeah.
You're trying to
Um,
get out of that one.
Man, we're in a blessed season of our life. We really, truly are, Leah and I. And, I just, prayers for, knowing what our next steps are going to be as we get, well, I'm going to be Medicare eligible here in less
Yeah.
than 2 years. And,
Yep.
but yeah, we're kind of blessed. We're in a good season, and, prayers for safe travel. I'm doing, you talked about open up our house. We're not doing that this year. We're doing Christmas in, Vienna.
Oh,
So we're
wow.
leaving in a couple days for Munich, Vienna, and Prague
Wow.
for
Okay.
a week or 12 days. So
Okay.
But yes, prayers for safe travel,
Safe
which is
travels, and
a
hope you find the right.
high end thing to be worried about.
Okay, yeah.
I'm embarrassed.
Hope you find the right Medicare Advantage plan. Right.
Yes, yes. All right. Thanks for having me,
yeah,
brother.
we'll do a little Namo here to wrap us
All
up.
right.
Brandon Fleehardy, 39, The Plague.
Plague.
Ah!
Jeff Chase, 63, Canadian Bacon.
Canadian Bacon. Respect. And do we, is there a call sign? Does anybody come up with a call sign?
There's some guys that will return with, it's just ham. And that's a Scoober. Scoober originated that.
It's just ham.
Yeah, it's Canadian Bacon has been funny for me because I'm the least Canadian guy alive.
Yeah.
I'm really not big into Canada.
Yeah.
And it's made me more Canadian. It's made me rethink a lot of that. So it's been good. Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate
Honored to be part of all of it.
Man. Have a great day.
Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah. Every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill.